Welcome to the CCFR Radio Podcast, your source for news, updates, and stories from the CCFR.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 200, the 10th anniversary episode of CCFR Radio on the Air. I'm your host, Rod Tracey. Thanks for joining me again today in the studio, as promised, the one and only Wilson!
Hey Rod, I'm happy to be here. Nice studio.
Well, thank you very much.
It's my first visit.
Yeah,
Yes.
You've seen it for I don't know how long now, never actually saw it in person.
That's right. Yep, here we are.
Okay, so we promised to lay out 10 years of the CCFR and hopefully come up with a few stories that maybe not everyone's heard. I think there's probably a lot of people that are following the CCFR maybe now that maybe for the last 5 years that haven't heard the stories from the early days.
That's right. Yeah.
It's going to be kind of exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is going to be a very long story. Might even have to take a break from time to time.
Maybe.
But let's get started. So where should we start?
Well, I think we should start in the beginning.
In the beginning.
In the beginning.
All right. Let's do. I'll put my glasses on too.
Okay. So we were both members of other groups. I know that I had an interest in participating in advocacy more than just being a gun owner. I wanted to do something. I wanted to help. And I fought like heck to get into these other groups. And, I had some fire in my belly and I wanted to do stuff. And I just couldn't. The door was slammed in my face at every opportunity. And that was frustrating. I think you experienced kind of something similar.
Well, I did. I was affiliated with another group there for about 4 or 5 months, I think. Mm-hmm. And it was a similar situation. There was a lot of trouble. I quickly realized it wasn't the place for me.
Right. And
I actually gave up on that whole idea of advocacy. I had a training company. I was working in business development, and I had a YouTube channel and 2 kids. And a wife at home, obviously, right?
Yeah.
But I'm a workaholic. But that's what I was doing, and I had no plans to do anything to do with firearm advocacy after that.
Well, I was sitting around with a group of people. The people who helped us found the CCFR, and I remember after an event one night, the next morning we were all sitting on the floor and just thinking about it was just a complete bust with the other group. So what could we do? And that's when we decided and started making the plans to create the CCFR. But we knew we sort of needed a leader. We needed somebody out front, maybe somebody that people would recognize and respect. And one guy was like, hey, I know somebody. I know this guy, Rod. And everyone's like, Rod Tracey and Civil Advantage. And they were all talking about it. And I'm sitting there, looking around. I'm like, I have never heard of him. Never heard of him in my life. I'm not a YouTube watcher. I'm not that kind of gunny. I didn't watch YouTube videos. So it was kind of funny because here 10 years later, I didn't even know who you were. But and I think it took a couple of tries to convince you to give the CCFR a go. And here you are. Yeah,
initially, actually, I said no. Mm-hmm. And then the person that was trying to recruit me on behalf of your group wouldn't take no for an answer. They came again. And then I agreed. You know what? I will, because I was familiar with startups. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, well, I have a little bit of experience to bring. And I said I would do it for a year. I'll do it for a year, get it up and running, and then you guys can take it away from there. And I guess the rest is history there. Okay, so a couple of interesting stories. Now, you told the story of, you guys were all sitting on the floor, and that was the birth of the CCFR.
Yes.
And then we had someone there to do all the corporate documents and get the bank account up and running, all the rest of that stuff. I came in and wrote a little 2-page essay. I guess the quick version of that little story was I wrote this essay to give it to you guys to see, because this was my vision of what a firearm advocacy group should do. And I didn't know if you guys would agree with that. And I had heard nothing back, but the one of the guys that started the CCFR along with you had just taken my essay, which wasn't even proofread, stuck the CCFR logo on there and uploaded it to the Facebook group where we started the organization.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. I remember that. And there was a whole bunch of infrastructure that had to be put in place. We had a lot of help from our friend Serge. He did a lot of work. and we basically started as a Facebook group, and we told people, don't donate, don't send us money. We don't want any of that. We weren't even open to be able to accept those things until we had built all that really critical infrastructure to make a real organization and be something more than just a Facebook group. And so those things happened. It kind of went along like that. And you were our fearless leader then, and you still are now. And we flung open the doors, and it was exciting.
Right. So there's a good story about the first member of the CCFR. And we're trying to do the abbreviated versions of all these stories because we have so much to talk about. So Serge LaChapelle was our first IT guy.
Yeah.
In fact, I think we were calling him general manager back then, if I remember correctly.
You're right.
Anyway, this was a decade ago. But we were using a open source software called CCFR to have our membership database. And he's having to, hard code integration between our, sign up page, right? Our website and CCFR and the payment processing and all the rest of that stuff. And so anyway, we had promised to get this thing open. I don't know, it was like October 28th, 2015 or something, or October 30th or something like that. And so Serge and I are desperately trying to get this thing to work. And I think it was midnight Pacific. He's in Quebec. So it was 3 a.m. his time. And we got to the point where he's like, okay, I'm going to buy a membership and make sure that it goes, into the database. My money is taken. A receipt comes back to him that he paid, and everything is good. So he buys a membership. And so he turns everything on, right? Nothing was on. We had a website, but it was like coming soon kind of thing. He turns everything on, buys a membership, and he's looking in the database. He's like, okay, I got the receipt. And he's looking, he's like, who is Charlie Goudreau? And I'm like, Charlie Goudreau? And he goes, yeah, we have a member, Charlie Goudreau. And I'm like, Charlie Goudreau is a guy that came through my firearm safety course, I don't know, whatever, like a month or 2 or 3 months previous. He was one of the students in one of my PAL classes that I told, whatever. And I'm like, and he goes, this is a guy that bought a membership. And I'm like, bought a membership? It's midnight on the West Coast.
Right.
Like 12:30. How did anyone know that the website just got turned on and then buy a membership?
He had to have been sitting there refreshing and waiting to be able to buy a membership. So he was committed, and he was our very first member.
Absolutely. And I'm not even sure I ever talked to Charlie and told him that. And then I think it was like, 10 minutes later, and we're still trying to get things, and another one. And I think we got like 3 or 4 members in the middle of the night that first day.
Yeah. And then, of course, it exploded the next morning once, the world woke up, and we splashed it all over social media that we were open for business, and away we went. And that's kind of how we were born. It took a lot of work, a lot of late nights, and we got it open. And that was just the beginning, of course, because just building the infrastructure for the organization allowed us to be able to accept donations and memberships, which allowed us to start doing the advocacy we'd always wanted to do, right?
Yeah, and that's a lot of work, to do that, to do it right.
Yes.
And so a lot of the things that we're talking about today, we didn't discuss in advance. We have our list.
Right.
But there were a number of different groups trying to start up at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a little bit of a funny little ecosystem there where you have these different groups, and there's a little battle between the different groups. Like, your group's going to be terrible, and we're doing the real group and all the rest of that stuff. But we finally got everything up and running. And out of all those groups, we were the only ones that actually got up and running.
Yeah,
properly.
That's right.
And little did we know where it would go, but we finally got everything up and running, and we started to get I think we got about 2,000 memberships in the first month or 2 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was actually the first month, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
But it was enough to start actually doing things. And one of the first things we did was gundebate.ca.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a really special project because it was sort of this online repository of information, a resource for gun owners to help them in their debates. We say it all the time. You can argue all day with somebody online, but sometimes being able to, mic drop a video or a tidbit of information and have all that stuff in one place is really valuable. And it's something that gun owners were asking for a very long time that never existed. So that was probably the most vital thing our community had up to that point.
Yeah, well, there wasn't a lot, right? Mm-hmm. That's why the CCFR was created. That's why everyone's trying to get things going because we felt like there were bad times coming.
Yes.
That part actually came true.
Oh, yeah.
But the idea of gundebate.ca and some of the other projects that we're going to talk about followed this idea that, whenever you went into firearm forums or firearm groups on Facebook or whatever, so many people are like, what we need to do, this, why it's not working is we need to do this, we need to do that, we need to do, full page ads in newspapers. Oh, we need to do television commercials on CBC. We needed, everyone had their idea what was required. So we started working on that. So the first thing was gundebate.ca, which has been redeveloped, I think, 3 or 4 times. Mm-hmm. And then the first crazy project, like doing a website is one thing. The first real, stretch for anyone's skill set, we did live action commercials.
Yeah.
And that was with Dustin Lang, who's still with the CCFR today. Mm-hmm. And we rented actual movie props, like a prop police car, actual police car. And we got actual actors from acting school, rented actual costumes and whatever. And we produced this television commercial of this woman gun owner that gets pulled over by the police. And just to say, hey, there's a lot of regulations out there that Canadians don't know are there.
Right.
And contravention of these can land you actually in jail. Mm-hmm. And we had actually produced that commercial and then sponsored it to go across YouTube and other social media platforms.
Yeah, which at the time was a big deal. Nobody had ever done stuff like that before.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We also made the explainer videos. So you'll remember back those first ones, I think it was you sort of narrating it and there was, cartoons sort of in the corner. But those were also an integral part of gun owners' ability to debate for themselves because, you can't just have talking heads representing millions of gun owners. They've got to get in there and do some of the work themselves as well. And this empowered gun owners to be able to do that because the debate is an art. And, not everybody has that skill set. So this was the average gun owner's ability to be able to drop these explainer videos in the debate or in the online forum or wherever it is you are debating with somebody and win an argument. We made them on a variety of different topics. And that was really important. That was very valuable. People love those.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we made 8 or 10 of them and they're expensive, right? Like now you can do that kind of stuff for very little money.
Yes.
But back then, like fully animated explainer videos, I think we paid $4,500 each.
Yes.
Like that was a big project. That was the biggest project that gun owners had, I don't know, funded in a long time, if not ever at that point. Because after we sponsored those on YouTube as well. And I don't know, I think that project did I write it down somewhere? It was a lot of money.
It was a lot of money. Yeah. And
it's like $60,000 or something.
Oh yeah. And we did a lot of, for the time, they were almost like expensive things, right? A lot of groups had put out, news releases, which were basically just stories on their website, and maybe they would send it to their email list. But another thing that we did was we did actual newswire press releases, and those were extremely expensive and actually difficult to do. They were complex. But we sent those out. And of course, that delivered our message right to the desks, the computers, and the inboxes of journalists of all types all across the country, and sort of gave gun owners that national voice that we hadn't had before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was, we gave that a try. And it was complicated. It's quite highly regulated. Okay, so then you and I were in a position to do media interviews because they started fairly quickly.
Yeah.
And I had done a few interviews. Because we discussed this earlier, right? Like I was used to talking to a camera, but nobody can understand how difficult interviews are until you've actually done a few, because every word you say will live forever.
Yep.
And you're dealing with people that do this stuff for a living. Their heart rate is not elevated whatsoever. This is just one of 10 they did that day. Mm-hmm. And you can really get hurt in them. And we had to learn a few lessons. I
think I probably had to learn a few more than you did. You may not have done a lot of media before, but you're right. You spoke in front of a camera. You had a very successful YouTube channel. You were an accomplished public speaker. I was basically running in there ready to scratch everyone's eyes out as usual and had no media experience. But we thought maybe there's some value to sort of introducing a female voice on behalf of gun owners instead of your typical, the stereotype.
Middle-aged white guy with a goatee.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The stereotype that gun owners get saddled with. Yeah. And so we decided, we're going to train Tracey up to do some media, and you help me make these cheat sheets. And, these actually hung on my walls for years. Now I know it enough. I know them by heart because I've been doing them for years. I don't need them. But if you would have gone into my office, there was cheat sheets literally taped all over the wall with different things. Like if they bring up the AR-15, here's a few points you can talk about that. If they bring up domestic violence, talk about this. If they bring up licensing, talk about this. All a variety of topics that you might be asked for in an interview. So when I'd be doing live radio, I'd be running around like a chicken with my head cut off in my office, scrambling from cheat sheet to cheat sheet.
The phone.
Yeah, with my phone on speakerphone doing this interview. And listening back to some of those early ones, you almost didn't really notice that it was that scrambled. Of course, we've come a long way since then. But yeah, and we also had some hostile interviews. I think you probably had a lot more hostility than I had.
Not that much more, but I did have one truly hostile interview. And which was good for me. Like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger kind of thing. And it was Scott Thompson, I believe was his name. And it was in Hamilton, Ontario or something. Okay. And this guy was losing his mind. Like he was literally yelling at me.
What? And
I took that interview on my cell phone in my car in the driveway.
Oh boy.
And, just so it would be nice and quiet, right? And my heart was like going 100 miles an hour. And I just stayed calm. And like I had not experienced that before. I was very happy the way that I handled it. Mm-hmm. But still it was extremely uncomfortable. But it's really good training so that you're prepared for how bad it can go or how easy it can go. And that guy got just savaged on social media because I've never been nasty to anybody or whatever. So it really didn't look good on him.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is I'd done since 2 interviews with, I think it was Scott Thompson. Forgive me if I got the name wrong, but I've done 2 interviews, and the next one that came up, I was like, okay, I'm ready for you this time. Like I am 100% ready. And I had my own cheat sheets, and I'm like, I'm ready for any kind of, and it was almost like a friendly audience.
Yeah.
It was just night and day. And then I did one other one with them, and it was fine too. But
yeah. It's funny. There was a lot of different media back then. And I remember I'd got a call from an actual Ottawa reporter. And she was like, hey, I want to do a story. You'll remember back when they were banning the magazines for the 1022. I think it was the 25 round magazines. So she wanted to do a story on that. And I agreed to do it with her, okay, we'll do an in-person interview. And she said, look, what if we did it at the range? And this way I can get some pictures and maybe some video of you, the firearm we're talking about, the magazine in your hand, a bunch of stuff like that. And I said, sure, okay. We went out. I spent the afternoon. I'll always regret not blow drying my hair that day. But I went out with her, and then I didn't hear anything more about it for like a month. A month goes by, never heard anything, kind of forgot about it. And I was actually driving my youngest daughter up to the hunt camp, and we're driving along the 148 out of Ottawa up into Quebec. And I stop at a corner store, and I'm paying for my gas. And I look down, and there's the Ottawa Sun. And on the cover, it says, Ottawa's gun goddess wants to change firearm legislation or something like that. And I just kind of froze. And I remember looking at my daughter, and she looks at me, and she was like, Mom, what the heck? And there's a picture of me on the front cover. And it was hilarious. So I bought up all the copies, and I ran out to the car and spread them all over the hood and took pictures and sent them to you and to Loberg and put them on social media. And then to find out later that day, it was also the cover of the Calgary Sun and the Vancouver Sun. And, it was like 7 national newspapers across the country. And yeah, that was sort of my little media break that gave me some credibility to do more interviews. But yeah, and also coined the term gun goddess, which is, I'll never live that down and totally embarrass my children. But yeah, it was still funny
Well,
story.
that was a big deal for us back then, right?
Yeah, it was.
Because we were still very new. Yeah, it was pretty interesting.
Thank you so much to our great friends over at Vortex Canada. They continue to support the CCFR podcast and the CCFR. Can't say enough about them. Check out all their great products at vortexcanada.net. That's vortexcanada.net. Vortex, the force of optics. A huge thank you goes out to our great friends over at the Saskatchewan Rivers chapter of Safari Club International. They do a lot of great work over there, including supporting the CCFR and the CCFR Radio podcast. Check out all their great work at saskriversSCI.com. That's saskriversSCI.com. CTOMS has been a provider of trauma care training to military and police in Canada for nearly 2 decades. Now this emergency medical training is being made available to a wider audience through CTOMS online courses. Go to ctomsacademy.com and use promo code CCFR30 to get 30% off. That's ctomsacademy.com.
Okay, then we had our very first AGM. So all this stuff happened between November, around the 1st of November, just to the following June.
Yes, it was a very busy time.
Yeah, like seven months. Everything we talked about was the first 7 months, really. Like, we didn't even acknowledge that before.
Yeah, that's true. But we decided we were going to have our annual general meeting. First of all, it's a requirement under the Not-for-Profit Act. And it's a great time to get together with your friends and the people that you've built this organization with. And although we had only been open for business for a short time, we had all known each other for years and growing this thing on Facebook and, the conflicts with the leaving the other group and things like that. So we get together in Ottawa, and it was interesting because our board of directors flew in, and this was the first time for most of us that we got to actually see each other face to face and sit in the same room. It wasn't a phone call. It wasn't Zoom. It was real. And I'll remember one of our old directors, Roger, we're sitting there, and it's kind of, getting into the late hours of the evening. And I think Loberg had bought us each a nice whiskey as a nightcap. And he says, it's like all our imaginary friends are real. And I still laugh to this day. I actually still repeat that because it's that same feeling that you go through something with people. You've built this thing, and, it was a ton of work and just all the conflict and all the, yes. Yeah. And then you're finally gathered together under the same roof. And it was really meaningful. And it was important to us, too. At the time, it was sort of revolutionary. Now it's pretty mainstream. But it was important to us that our members, regardless of where they are geographically, it doesn't matter if we're having the AGM in Ottawa and you're out in the East Coast or out in the West Coast or up north, you should be able to join in, right? And so we were the first ones to sort of live stream our AGM. And at the time, Zoom and those sort of applications didn't exist. So it was like, you had a Telecaster or whatever it's called to be able to live stream this to people. And it was a big production. It was very expensive at the time. Of course, now it's easy. But it was important to us to include everybody because we didn't want members to be left out just because you happen to live far away from where we're meeting or you couldn't afford to join. Your voice is still important. So. Yeah.
Well, and it was cutting edge because right from the get-go, it was almost like if you had a rough childhood, you remember all the experiences you've had, and you're like, when I have kids, I'm never going to do that.
Yes.
And I mean, no matter what kind of home you grew up in, you've had those moments where you're like, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
And so our experience is certainly from my, and I know it's the same for you, right? So I'm going to speak for you actually on your behalf. We all were like, okay, well, we're going to make sure that everybody has a voice and the AGM is not shut off for anybody that can't afford to come or they have it in one place and, which excludes everyone else unless they want to pay. It's going to be open to everybody. Everyone's going to have a vote. We did remote voting.
Yes. Yes, we did.
And that was expensive. And that first internet broadcast of our AGM, like that whole setup cost us $4,400 because I remember what it was.
Which at the time was a lot of money.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of money now too. But we had very humble beginnings. So to be able to afford to do that, like it took a lot, but we wanted to.
It was important.
It was important because we didn't want it to be this sort of exclusive good old boys thing that always seemed to happen with gun groups, right? We wanted everybody as equal at the CCFR. Yeah. And that was really important to us.
Yeah.
So.
And it never got any cheaper until we got to the point where Zoom was because we had Skype back then, which was okay. And then you had WebEx back then, but it was not, you couldn't just, it just wasn't practical. Now we can do it through Zoom because Zoom has all the tools.
Oh, yeah.
To allow us
we can
to
have
do that,
voting
right?
on there and all
Yeah, it's
kinds of
pretty
things.
cool.
Yeah.
All right. Then at that point, so we're talking like 8 months in, we had 250 field officers at that point. The community really came together.
Oh, yeah. And we were all volunteers back then. We had no staff. Everybody was just volunteering. But we had like a literal army of 250 girls and guys from across the country who were like, okay, how can we help? What can we do? Put us to work. And that has always been the backbone of the CCFR. It doesn't matter if we've got a couple of paid staff or no paid staff. The volunteers are the heartbeat of the organization. And I know that's cheesy, but it's 100% true because without them, we couldn't do any of this. And every time we get a thank you, it's always on their behalf, you know?
Yeah, it is. It is. Then we were starting to build a profile and we ended up getting that invitation to do the documentary with Vice Media.
Yeah.
Which was exciting because we hadn't done anything like that before.
Yeah. Armed and reasonable.
Armed and reasonable.
Yeah.
And we looked last night or the night before.
And it's still up.
2.7 million views.
Yeah,
on that documentary.
Yeah. A lot.
And it's okay.
It's okay.
That's not bad.
Yeah. I mean, for Vice especially, not bad at all.
For what Vice became.
Yes.
And then around that time, we launched our ladies program. So why don't you talk about that since you are a lady?
Well, a bunch of the girls within the CCFR, and that's another thing that's sort of exclusive to the CCFR, at least at that time, was it was important to us to have women in leadership roles. And so we had a bunch of gunny girls who are gunnies, who were like, hey, we want to expand. We want to host ladies' range days across the country. And I came to you with this idea and you're like, that's great. But back then in those humble beginnings, we didn't have all kinds of money to go to the range. And as you know, taking a whole bunch of girls, 50, 60, 100 women to the range is pretty expensive, just the ammo alone. And you said, well, if you can fund the program, go ahead. So we were sitting around thinking, well, how can we fundraise for our own program? I had no interest in doing bake sales, but I was like, hey,
what could be even just as bad as a bake sale?
And I'm like, look, you guys are beautiful women. And I think we should put together a calendar. We'll keep it classy. It's not going to be, some kind of TNA calendar. It's going to be classy. It's going to feature real gun girls, Canadian girls, real CCFR members, cool guns in some really cool locations. And we launched the Gunny Girl calendar. And that was the first year. I was on the cover, so it's ridiculous, but it was a total scramble. Girls were sending in, just photos that their friends had taken or whatever. And we sort of made do with what we had. It's definitely evolved since then. But right from the start, we were able to start raising a pretty substantial amount of money to be able to host and support ladies' range days all across the country. And we have literally taken thousands of women to the range who otherwise wouldn't have had that opportunity.
Yeah, we've done a few hundred ladies' days over the last while. And then actually next on our list was, I guess, the animated explainer videos showed up twice on this list. And I knew that number was sitting there, 120,000, because it was 55,000 to do the explainers.
Right.
And I think it was, I think it was 8 or 10 of them. And then we actually put $60,000 into sponsoring them on YouTube as YouTube ads.
Yeah. Well, we originally had the ones where you were sort of the narrator and the talking head, and there was animation behind you. And then the second set that we did were those whiteboard ones. You'll remember those.
That's still that refers to the first one, the animated ones.
Okay. Yeah.
Which I'm not like, I'm proud of the scripts and I like the animation.
Oh,
but I still hadn't figured out white balance on a camera, right? So, and I was still quite inflamed in those days. All right. Well, now the first employee that ever came on at the CCFR was you.
Me. Mm-hmm. It started with me. Yes. Our good friend Loberg had employed me for a period of time when we were first building the CCFR after I left my longtime career. And that was actually sort of a stepping stone because, I think I probably did a heck of a lot more work for the CCFR than I did for Loberg. But we needed somebody to you can't do this 8 or 10 or 12 hours a day on top of a full-time job.
Yeah.
So we came to the point where it was like, okay, I need to actually work here and be employed by the CCFR. And that's what we did. And at the beginning, I registered as our lobbyist, which was important. At that time, there wasn't a single other registered lobbyist for firearm rights in the country. But I was also doing everything. I was doing membership. I was doing database. Like I was doing emails. Answering the phones.
Yeah.
Literally the job that all our staff do now, I was doing all those jobs rolled into one, which of course.
Not at the volume.
Not even remotely close.
Still, yeah.
But yeah, I had my fingers in all the pots. But yeah, it was humble beginnings back then for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you registered as a lobbyist.
Yeah.
And we actually had access to the government back in those days.
Yeah. I had a rotating about every 3 weeks meeting with public safety. And that was under former sleepy Uncle Ralph Goodale, the former public safety minister. We worked awful hard to watch him lose in the next election, which we'll talk about coming up. But looking back on it, it's almost like a be careful what you wish for situation, because every single public safety minister since, and we've had 6, has basically not engaged with stakeholders, not met with the only people who are affected by the decisions they make. So yeah, I actually sort of miss those days because you can never prove a negative. You can't prove what didn't happen, but the stuff they were floating, hey, Tracey, what if we do this to gun owners? And they'd float something across the table to me. And I'd be like, what are you talking about? That's nuts. So there was a lot of stuff that was sort of staved off back then that never became news headlines or no one ever talked about because it just didn't happen. Yeah. So yeah, it was
we
an
had a seat at
interesting
the table during Bill C-71.
Oh yes.
Back then, and did get stuff floated to us, which was, back then government worked a little bit better.
Yeah.
A little bit more as intended before. And then are we talking about the petition?
Well, that's when
I can't remember a lot of the details of that one.
Yeah, that was the very first parliamentary e-petition that we worked on. Of course, we worked on a bunch afterwards, including one of the largest in history with Glenn Motz. But that E-1093 was a parliamentary e-petition that I partnered with Michelle Rempel on. And the idea here was Ralph Goodale had put together CFAC, the Canadian Firearms Advisory Committee. And the people on CFAC most of them didn't even have a firearms license. They had never been through the course. And I thought, well, as a backgrounder, even if they don't go apply for their license, as a backgrounder of the most basic information, if they took the Canadian Firearm Safety course and we agreed we would give it to them, at the time you were still an instructor, that would give them that base level of knowledge. And I don't think that was an unreasonable request. But of course, it was deemed that it would be cruel and unusual to people on the committee to have to take that very basic course. So, yeah.
And then at some point in around that time, we started the CCFR Radio podcast.
Yes.
And that was Brian Bolivar. It was his idea. And we were this was at the first AGM at the Podcasters Charity Shoot.
Right. And
he said to me, he's like, not everybody's got time to sit and read an email newsletter. You should get a podcast going to, so that it's like people can just listen to it. And I'm like, negative, Ghost Rider. I'm not doing that. Like we're not here to do podcasts.
Funny how that went.
He nailed it. Nailed it.
Yeah.
So that was the guy that made the first suggestion for the podcast, Brian Bolivar.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now we're on the next page. Are we on the same page? Are we on the same page right now?
Oh, yeah. We've always been on the same page.
Okay. So now the CCFR started picking up steam.
Yep.
So
and with that comes trouble.
Yeah. Well, we started to become actually an annoyance and start to get more attention and start pushing the conversation a little bit out to the mainstream, because even at that point, because I remember very clearly, we were getting more media than any gun group had ever, like mainstream media.
Oh, yeah.
Than any gun group had ever done. And we had a strategy for that. We wanted to just make sure that people knew that gun owners were normal people, because we are the gun lobby. And so people are, what about this evil gun lobby? It's like, we're just regular people that want to keep having regulated legal access to firearms for hunting, sport shooting, collecting inheritance, and even, God forbid, to protect ourselves if the worst day of our lives ever occurred. And we wanted to make sure that licensed gun owners were represented as who they are.
Yeah.
People like us, just like regular people going, it's not right to try to do what you're doing.
Right.
And here's why. And so we were getting a lot of attention. It's funny because the media really opened up to us.
Mm-hmm.
And with that came a little bit of attention from the government and other groups.
Yeah. So there were a couple of, anti-gun type lobby groups existing at the time. Wendy Sugier and the Coalition for Gun Control and Police Souvien, of course, are still around. But they were not very effective. Mm-hmm. And I think the Liberal government was looking for somebody that would bring some sort of different kind of credibility and appeal to authority. And in came the Doctors for Protection from Gun Owners, or whatever they're called.
The spin doctors for protection.
Guns, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think this was in the government's way of preparing for what was eventual to come in 2020, which we'll talk about later. But they could also make the conversation around guns a public health emergency. And we all know exactly what that means, especially now. It's never been clear. The docs came along. They had the white coat syndrome. I remember doing an interview sort of on the opposing side of Nash Mohammed, Dr. Nash, who's their spokesperson. And we both were in studio. I was in Ottawa. She was in Toronto in the CBC studios. And she brought her white lab coat,
that's how it works.
Like a costume, right, to wear for her interview. Mm-hmm. And I always think back to that and how it was funny because she had to take that out of the hospital and bring it like a little costume. That's cute.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot of pressure though. Hey.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure you really felt the pressure. Nobody understands what it's like, until you've had to do it. Mm-hmm. Right. Until your words are ringing out, going across the airwaves to God knows how many people are watching. And you say one thing wrong and it's there forever.
It's there forever.
So it's high pressure. And of course, here's some behind the scenes stuff, right? Because I wanted to make sure that we were talking about stuff that people didn't really know. When we do media interviews, we don't get any questions in advance. We don't get any concessions at all. No. They're like, do you want to come on and talk about, whatever it is, Bill C-71, Bill C-21, the firearm ban, the buyback or whatever. And that's it. And we're like, absolutely, and they give us a time, we're there, right? And we respond within 60 seconds typically to media requests, right? It's very important. Or they'll move on to somebody else. So you put all this effort in and they don't give us anything. When it comes to the other side, they give these people the option whether or not they want anyone else on while they're on. They'll give them the questions. I don't know about every time, but I know in some of the media interviews that I've done, they've given questions in advance to the other side. So they're fully prepared for what happens. Mm-hmm. If not, what happens is they'll do their interview first, typically, and then the interviewer will give us, whatever version of those questions, for us on the spot to answer. So we're always at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
But it was very interesting. The docs got the red carpet rolled out.
Oh, yes.
And I mean, I probably have 20 stories. Obviously, we're not going to talk about that, all those stories now, but even I could tell you 20 that would be shocking, right? Our interactions with them and the government and the media. But a couple of, I think some of the best, the greatest hits, as it were, was they would have the doctors on. They'd show up in work clothes, right? The white coat.
Oh yeah.
I don't remember that. I'm not sure if we ever saw them with a stethoscope, but that was what it is. So this is your doctor speaking. So you just by default have to believe them.
Sure.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things they were pushing was this the study from the Sick Kids Hospital in Ontario that a child a day is injured with a gun in Ontario. Every day there's a child injured with a gun. And then you go and you start digging in. I mean, the mainstream media parroted that.
Oh, yeah.
Like every single outlet, multiple times. And every single time there was a conversation about guns, they would trot that study out again.
Yes.
And then even doctors that were gun owners, read the study and they're like, that's not true. 86% of these guns weren't actually guns. They were toy guns, pellet guns, airsoft, right? Staple guns.
Nerf guns.
Yeah. Toy.
Yes.
Yeah. Like it was unbelievable. And it was right in the study.
Yeah.
And then children were from 0 years of age to 25. Why? So that you could bring in the gang shootings.
That's exactly right.
Right? And so it was the most ridiculous, discredited study. Like it was an affront to science, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically, you mentioned a study in Ontario that involved the number of children that are have been affected by gun accidents or violence. Can you just repeat that a little bit, just quickly? Sure. Because that there was so much in each of your presentations, I was having trouble keeping up, and that really jumped out at me, and I wanted just to make sure I got it right.
We will submit all of that for you so you can study it better, and I actually have it here somewhere. It is a study that comes out of, it's called The Risk of Firearm Injuries Among Children and Youth, and the senior author is Dr. Natasha Saunders. It comes out of the group at the Hospital for Sick Children, and it documents that over a 5-year period, 2008 to 2012, there was one child per day injured by a gun in Ontario.
That's what I thought you said. I just wanted to make sure I heard it clearly.
That is correct. That is the reported evidence and the data. Children in rural centers.
To be represented as, and then I remember I even showed the graphic that came from the organization that did the study. And they had a little kid with a handgun in his hand like this.
So ridiculous.
And it said firearms.
Yeah.
It actually didn't say guns. It said firearms. I still have the graphic.
Well, and they were funny because they were sort of the ones who started referring to us as like NRA style or, to try and tap some kind of, negative energy on us.
Hate for the states.
Yeah.
Right?
And they hired Christopher Hallcroft to be their lobbyist. And the one thing that was interesting was any time you would try and, take down the study or criticize anything that the docs had said, of course, especially with you, the race card would be flipped, the misogyny card, forget about the fact that you're actually just talking about the data or the evidence that she's providing, which is supposed to be incontrovertible. The science is settled on it, which isn't how science works. But every time you would criticize anything at all, she'd, hide behind both the race card and the woman card. So that was interesting. However, there was a Toronto Board of Health meeting, and they had Dr. Mostosi there. And you'll remember Dr. Mostosi is not just a doctor, but he is a licensed legal sports shooter, a gun owner, and he's actually the veteran trauma surgeon from the Polytechnique shooting. So when that dark day happened in Canada, in Montreal at the Polytechnique College, where there was a misogynist attack on 14 women, he was the doctor who responded to the people who were injured.
He was there in the emergency room.
He was right there at ground zero at that. And it's interesting because he went and testified at this Toronto Board of Health meeting. And the way he was treated and bombarded by these people and the sheer smirky look that the other doctors gave him, it was absolutely just like deviant behavior. It was rough.
I was present personally at the Montreal Polytechnique shooting in 1989, where 14 women lost their lives. It affects me still.
You have a list of individuals on your website. Who are they?
So we have trauma surgeons, we have ICU
but
docs.
who are they, the ones that are listed on your website? Are they your members?
Names?
No, I'm just wondering who they are. Are they your board of directors?
We don't have a formal organization, no.
So they're
loose. That's what loose means.
So the 9 people are your organization, correct?
Yes, those are
9 individuals.
Those are the core individuals. We have
they're your
other
board of
individuals
directors,
that we keep in touch with and who are on the social media thread, who are physicians, nurses, paramedics, and other healthcare professionals.
Who runs the website?
We have a website
individuals?
coordinator. We have a guy who's good in IT that runs the website.
Because all of the information about who owns the URL has been redacted. So I'm just wondering who manages.
I'm sorry, you're asking the wrong person. I'm not an IT person, and I'm not well versed in those.
So maybe you can tell me. So the leadership of the organization, how is it run?
There is no leadership. We just keep in touch, and we share information.
You have 9 individuals.
Excuse me, can I answer the question?
Well,
we have individuals who have various strengths. A couple of the individuals have presented at Senate committees and are aware of the literature and are gathering literature and share that literature with us so that we can be science and evidence-based.
So there's 9 core members of the organization. And then you have someone that does your website.
Yes.
Is that one of those 9 members, or is it a volunteer, or is it a paid person? Do you have staff?
It's a volunteer person who's good in IT.
Is it one of those 9 members?
No.
No,
it's an IT person.
It's all a bit of a mystery. But there's 9 people involved.
Well, it really demonstrated who the doctors for protection from guns truly are as humans.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they're doctors, and that's great. And these are highly competent people, and they save people's lives in the emergency, whatever. But as people, bad people.
Yeah.
And especially Najma Ahmed, who sat behind while Greg Mostosi was getting roasted because the fix was in with the whole board, right? And it was the weaker son of Jack Layton. What was his name? He was the counselor there.
Oh, I can't remember.
Anyway,
his name,
whatever.
Yeah.
This spineless guy, and he's going after Mostosi about the website to their group. Because they were having like doctors, a doctors group that was not so much pro-gun, but just like, hey, you can't spread misinformation about guns.
Right.
It's not professional. And so they went after him about the website and who's admitting his website and all the rest of that stuff. And Najma Ahmed is laughing, giggling behind Mostosi right there while he's getting grilled on video. Yeah. Well, I put out a video about it.
Oh, yeah.
It's just unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
We've seen some pretty crazy things in our time.
Yeah,
That's
they
for
seem
sure.
to have more or less disappeared, though. So I guess they served their purpose and have been more or less discarded by the Liberal government at this point.
Yeah.
But moving on, the stakes were really against us. And I think the most important thing we could do to sort of promote firearms ownership in this country and preserve it going forward was to start changing the hearts and minds of the people who were supporting some of this bad policy. And the best way to do that was to introduce them to sport shooting. I think our community sort of suffered from this bad branding where we were taught to keep things on the down low. Don't put gun stickers on your car. Don't
tell anybody.
Yeah, don't tell anybody what you're doing. Don't wear gun shirts. Hide your thing. And looking back now, that was an absolute grave mistake made by our community because we failed to normalize it. Yeah. So what we wanted to do was bring sport shooting, the use of handguns, black guns, right into the living rooms of average Canadians across the country. And we did that with Canada Downrange. And that was, I think, for me, that was our favorite show.
Well, that was a big achievement because if you think about it, this was the first sport shooting weekly series in the history of Canada ever on mainstream television. So the first season, and of course, we didn't know about producing television. I mean, that was my project. I had no idea, but I'm a quick learner. So we did.
Thank God.
So we did the first season, which I think was a bit of a disaster, just because we weren't an active participant like we were and we weren't in the production. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know exactly what this show was. And, the people that were producing it didn't know it or whatever. So season 1 was not great, but I learned everything I needed to learn.
Yeah.
And then I'm really proud of season 2. Season 2 was fantastic. So, and we showed this on both outdoor networks in Canada. So it was shown nationwide. And we had just kind of hit our stride, got season 2 out. It was really great. And then boom, it was May 1st happened. But during this whole thing, I ended up getting cancer the first time.
I know.
So we were doing I think we were doing the podcast already because it was actually in 2018.
Yeah.
And I was sort of lucky. I ended up losing a kidney over it, but I didn't have to be actually treated for the cancer part. So I think we timed everything, all of our responsibilities. Yes. We timed it that I got everything done, went in for surgery, and was recovered enough to keep up appearances.
Well, we recorded the podcast the day before you went in for surgery to have your kidney removed so that people wouldn't know you had kidney cancer, wouldn't know you were out having surgery or having any problem at all. And you would have enough time to heal up and at least look normal. Whether or not you felt normal is a different question.
It wasn't video yet.
Oh, right. I think it was just audio.
It was just audio then.
Yeah.
So,
But we didn't tell people. You didn't want people to know. I think Michael knew and I knew and the board knew. But that was it. We kind of kept that under wraps. And we'll talk about more.
Yeah, there's a reason.
There's a reason.
So anyway, and then no bad reason, by the way. So then I think the next big opportunity or call to action for us was the 2019 election.
Yes, that's right. So the election was called and we knew we wanted to do something. We had to do something, right? We got to get out in front of this thing. We wanted to register as a third-party political advertiser so we could spend some money. And we were playing around with what to do. And I think we had talked about doing billboards. You know, the lead up to the election wasn't long. Billboard companies didn't want to deal with us, or they wanted to water our message down to the point where it wasn't even worth doing. And we thought about, okay, if we can't get billboards, maybe we could splash our message on the side of like an 18-wheeler and drive it across the country. Well, that can get pretty expensive if you're stopping and using hotels and eating out and all these things. And so I think it was Colin actually who came up with the idea to have an RV. And because then that's a traveling hotel room and a traveling billboard. So that's exactly what we did. From the time we came up with the idea, I think it was 4 days later, we had a 34-foot RV completely wrapped with graphics. They were awesome. And it was just, you know, this massive PR stunt. We drove it across the country. I think we started in Trudeau's riding in the Montreal area, did a whole bunch in the GTA, which of course is ground zero for any election, and then made our way across the country. But it raised a ton of awareness. It embarrassed the Liberals. And of course, it produced the now famous or infamous Bill Blair video where we caught him, you caught him lying, got him red-faced, huffy-puffy. That was pretty fun.
Someone that's enforced the law, apparently, for so long, you'd think you'd know even the smallest detail about that. And then you just told me I said something that I didn't say, and it's on video. You could even go look it up yourself. See, this is a problem, right? And I'm just looking for honest discussion, honest conversation with honest people that really want to solve the problem, and you just told me a lie. That I said that people are going to open fire on the police. I never said that in my life. Not in my life. The video is right there on your computer. So I don't
watch your videos,
now,
Rod. I have to confess.
Well, apparently you just did. You just told me that you did.
It's been reported to me.
Oh, so it's hearsay.
No, but I've seen it written that you said, implied that people would be, children could be injured in the crossfire of this thing. And quite frankly, I think that
no, I never said crossfire. And the problem is when you pay the media $600 million to tell your story, this is exactly what you get.
Yeah, well, the bill. So there's actually a couple little behind the scenes things.
Yes.
We had no idea that he would say yes. Like we had stopped at a couple of campaign offices of Liberal MPs or Liberal candidates, I guess you could say. And, people are locking the door.
Oh, yeah.
When they see us pull up, we would park the bus right in front of their office.
Yeah.
Their campaign office. We had the I think it was Pam Damoff's was in a mall.
Yes.
And then she had called the mall operator.
Mall security.
And then they told us that we had to vacate the property.
Yeah.
And whatever, right? So we were getting kind of just, we're like, okay, well, we're not going to get any interviews. We try Bill Blair and he says yes. Come back in a minute. I'm like, he's not going to, that's BS. He just wants to get us. No, he thought he was going to cross swords with us. And so we ended up with the Bill Blair interview and it was pretty epic. And that was the first time that I actually was in the same room physically with Bill. And he's a disturbing individual.
Yeah. Oh,
there's something. Yes. Something comes off of him, some kind of vibration where anyway, I don't want to get into it, but he's unsettling. He's an unsettling person.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and everything you would think is actually true.
Yeah.
But one of the, there's something else I wanted to share about that. Another experience that we had on that tour. Well, we went to the gun store in the Niagara region.
Yeah, that was a great time, and just seeing everybody, because it was sort of twofold. We called it kicking in Liberal doors, which is not true. We were not, but we're door knocking, right? Yeah. Going to Liberal campaign offices and trying to talk to them. We were in search of integrity. It was the integrity tour, which of course there was none to be found. But the other side of that was we were also sort of doing these meet and greets at gun shops and stuff across the country. And that was really great because it was a tough time for gun owners. We are going into the selection. We didn't know what the result was going to be. And it was just sort of inspiring and maybe a little bit of a guilty pleasure to spend some time with our people. So that was pretty important.
Yeah, it was pretty good. And it was, and the back of it said, honk if you support legal gun owners. And people were honking and driving by us on the freeway. And
the whole side of it was like liberal failure,
yeah.
tough on, or soft on crime, tough on gun owners.
Yeah.
And you had these really goofy pictures of Trudeau and a whole bunch of them. Mark Holland, we had a bunch of cast of characters on there. And of course, that was all leading up to the election, which the Liberals won. They were reduced to a minority, which was good. We thought maybe that would curb some of their attacks on gun owners, but it didn't. In fact, because they didn't have the numbers to do legislation, they ended up doing some things by OIC.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. And then, of course, probably the next stop on our journey is May 1st, 2020.
Yeah, I like to refer to it as Doomsday because that was a very dark day for our community. I remember being, we knew there was an announcement coming. They had put that out. And I remember being in my home office and I ended up running out into the living room and just watching this press conference and Trudeau coming up to the podium. I think they had a silhouette of an AR-15 or something on it. And he came out and just as he was detailing, as of today, and I'll never forget just the shock of it. It was like an absolute gut punch. Like I could not understand what was happening. I could not believe they were going so far. I mean, they've gone a lot further since, but it was just a shocking abuse of OICs and of the power that they had.
Yeah, well, that was the problem. It wasn't, we're going to bring forward legislation at the first available opportunity to do this, that, or the other thing. It's just like, no, we're going to use an OIC on something at a level, at a scale where order in council has never been used before.
Yeah. And it circumvented the entire parliamentary process, right? Part of our democracy and our system is the due process of debate, of the ability of legislators from all different parties to come into the House of Commons and debate it, for it to be studied at committee and be testified, expert witnesses to come and testify against it. And then, of course, the most democratic part of all is a vote. All of that completely circumvented and ignored by use of an OIC, which was absolutely brutal.
Yeah, by a minority government.
Yeah.
So it was pretty bad. So when that happened, obviously it was a whole new. It's interesting because it was almost like a harbinger of things to come of what it was going to be like to try to fight for people to be able to legally own and use firearms, right? As I like to say all the time. But it was shocking. Yeah. And so when something like that happens, you're just like, well, what do I do now? And I mean, there's been many moments even since then, like, what are we going to do now? So, at the time I was just like, okay, let me think.
The opposite of me. I'm running around screaming with my hair on fire. Yeah. And you're like, all right, we need a plan.
Yeah, I need to think about this. So I scratched together a plan and I put out a video to let people know, here are the things that we're going to do. And I can't remember everything on the list because I didn't check in, I didn't watch that old video because we're busy. But there was a couple of things on there. And one of them was that we formed this thing called the CCFR Action Group on Facebook.
Yeah.
And so we ended up with, I think there was like 9,000 people in there.
Thousands
right?
of people that we mobilized.
Yeah, it was crazy. And what we were doing with that was we created social media images and whatever. And we want people to put those images and whatever in that group. People download them onto their own computer and go out there and post them on social media everywhere. And if we have thousands of people doing that, then we didn't need the algorithm. We didn't need sponsored videos or to, go with hat in hand to social media companies saying, can I buy advertising and post it? Can I give you money to post this for us? No, right. We don't like that. We don't think people should have firearms legally or licensing or whatever their problems were. We were going to do it ourselves and create that reach ourselves.
And it was interesting to see people answer that call to action, and they would do it. And, we laid out very specific plans. Okay, here's the graphic. Here's a post where we need you to go and spam it. Yeah. Here's where we want you to send it. Here's what you do. And they were like, yep, okay. And every day we had people doing stuff in there. And it was just an incredible show of effort. Because once again, we never want it to be just two talking heads. leading an organization, the members, the supporters, the volunteers, they're the people who can make the most impact.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you announced that we were going to file a court challenge against this gun ban.
That's right. Now, this is important. This is interesting because going back to what we talked about before, everyone in the community is like, we need to take them to court. We need to do this on newspapers. We need radio ads. We need whatever, right? Everyone's got this different idea of what's going to make the difference.
Right.
And when it came to, and we never wanted, it's funny because we were started as a nonpartisan organization that was there just to educate people. And this is something we didn't say and didn't talk about in the origin story, but one of the big problems that I always thought, and I had put it in that essay, was that the problem why everyday Canadians don't understand why people own guns, or they don't understand that it's criminals and criminally sourced guns that are the problem and not licensed gun owners. Licensed gun owners don't create a problem for public safety, is because people didn't know what the existing laws were. They didn't know how difficult it was to obtain and to hold a license and to, own an AR-15 or a handgun or whatever, right? Firearm registration and laws and all the rest of that stuff. So we wanted to be just a public relations organization and talk to all political parties. But then politics changed. The Liberal Party just shot to the left, like left of the NDP.
Yeah, we didn't change; they did.
That's right, and it's like then they cut us off. It's like we're no longer talking to you because you are people beneath, being talked to, right?
Yeah.
And so anyway, we never wanted to sue anybody either, but we got to the point where it's like, somebody needed to do something.
Yeah.
So we were like, okay, we looked into suing the government because they inappropriately used the order in council and figured out how much maybe it would be and whatever, because there's never any guarantee in law, big lawsuits like that. But one of the things we want to do is, in the past, there's only been a couple of times where gun groups or individuals had taken the government to court over firearm issues. And they weren't real lawsuits. So, for example, there was one time where a gun group got a favorable ruling at the Supreme Court of Canada. But then if you looked at that ruling, it was like, oh, okay, it wasn't the gun group's case. They didn't have anything to do with this case all the way up till it got to the Supreme Court, and then they were an intervener.
One of 11 interveners.
Yeah, one of 11 in total interveners on that case. So there's all kinds of different groups of, whatever, like civil rights groups and whatever. And intervening on a case means you just do a little essay basically, and you submit it to the court, and then you show up on the day that there's a hearing, and you may get 20 minutes to talk. Like that's the level of involvement in an intervention.
Yeah.
So then when the plaintiff, the applicant, won that case, then it's like, oh, we took the government to the Supreme Court of Canada and we won. Like that, details are important.
Yeah,
right?
it's manipulated.
But the whole point, and this is I know I'm kind of stalling the whole process here, but this is important. If we were going to go to court, an actual gun group, an actual organization suing the government directly, and a wide variety of applicants under us, and we were going to fund the whole thing, we were not going to do like a lot of groups do, which is we file an application, we walk away, we do absolutely nothing for 4 or 5 years, show up at final arguments, lose, and be like, we didn't,
and there's no sense fighting it any further.
Yeah,
That's
exactly,
it.
right?
Yeah.
So it was like, no, we're going to fight the government every step of the way. So the way that we did it was find proper applicants for everything and sue them ourselves as an organization. We put millions of dollars behind it. We cross-examined every single witness, called affiants. We did 3 injunctions. We fought every intervener that wasn't on our side.
And won. We kept Wendy secure out of there.
Against Wendy, yeah. And to be fair, there were a couple of other groups, no gun groups, but there was a landowners group and the Eichenberg case.
Yeah, there's a couple of other cases that kind of went the distance with us, but the other ones did not.
Absolutely. And they were there with us the whole time, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And then when we lost that case, which we shouldn't have lost, and even the legal team, it wasn't a gun owner that was also a lawyer. It wasn't a friend of ours or whatever. We hired a team of constitutionally experienced, a whole team.
Like specialists.
Specialists in this kind of law. And it was wildly expensive. And we was like, no, we have to do it right. Because I didn't want to spend the rest of my life going, I know we shouldn't have lost, but maybe if we would have actually got the right people, or maybe if we would have cross-examined the witnesses better, or maybe if we did, did we lose because we lost, or did we lose because we didn't do it right? And I want to make sure, and even if we lost, at least we had the answer.
Yeah, that's the important
Can the government
part.
do whatever it wants, whenever it wants, to whoever it wants, for any reason? The answer apparently for the courts is yes, unless you're trying to close a bike lane, because that triggers a charge. That's not even a joke. Or you want plastic straws or plastic bags because you have a charter right.
That's
for those.
a step too far.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. So then we didn't give up when we lost. We went to the Federal Court of Appeals.
Right.
They've turned us down. We still didn't give up because you don't know if you're going to win. You got to go all the way. So we did file, and we're waiting to hear back from the Supreme Court. So anyway, some of those things, why we did that and why we went as hard as we did is really important, because we need that answer. Did we do it right and we still lost? Yes. Okay, fine. That didn't work. Let's move on to the next thing, kind of thing, right?
Right.
Super important.
Yeah, very important. And of course, during this time, it was a weird time. This was after the election. We were into 2020, into 2021, and, the COVID thing and all of that happening. And we had an integrity march. So once again, we were out in search of integrity. And I don't know, again, I think this might have been a guilty pleasure for us and for gun owners, because it sure made everyone feel good and brought people together. But we decided to gather in Ottawa. And we did this in September. The weather was beautiful. And we didn't have any clue if people were going to show up or not show up. We got absolutely no help or support from any of the other gun groups in promoting it or getting people there. Some of the clubs and stores, especially around the GTA and all over Ontario, were amazing. They were sending busloads of people. Like, it was great. But still, we had no way of knowing, are 300 people going to show up or 10,000? Like, no way to know.
And it was hastily planned. I think
it was
like maybe 2 months.
Yeah. And it was in the middle of COVID, which was a weird time for people. They didn't know, some people couldn't travel. Some people, there was just weird restrictions in different jurisdictions. Like, it was a bizarre time. And I'll never forget the day of the march, and I had been in contact with Parliamentary Protective Services, PPS, which of course guards the Hill. And I had been in contact with them in the city of Ottawa and doing all the legitimate planning to make sure that we had everything in order. And we were at the hotel downtown. You were stuck doing interviews. I was done mine. I had nothing else to do. So I said, I got a call from PPS. And they said, you got to get up here. Your people are already assembling here. And I think it was still like an hour before it was supposed to start. So I left you at the hotel. I said, I'll see you after. I'll see you there. I'm going to grab Colin and go ahead and head over. And I'll never forget, for those listening who have been to Ottawa, the way Wellington Street is and the steps leading up to the lawn of Parliament Hill, it's sort of above street level. So you're walking down the sidewalk and you have to climb these cement steps. And so I'm short. And as I'm climbing,
you can see the lawn.
Yeah, before you can see the lawn. So as I'm climbing up the steps and I sort of breach the top, of the sight line of everybody on the lawn. And it was overwhelming. It was just literally a sea of people. And I just was like, oh boy, they did show up. And the feeling in my heart, like, it was just, I had a lump in my throat and I couldn't think and I couldn't speak. And they all turned around and they were looking at me. And I was like, oh God. And I took a picture and I sent it to you. And I'm like, you better get your butt up here, get your interview done. So I go talk to PPS, talk to them for a few minutes. And I turn back around and I start walking towards the crowd. And everybody was sort of, there was a hum of voices, but they were kind of quieted down, staring at me, waiting for me to do something. And I just was walking towards them and I went, what's up? And they just went like, ah! And it was the wildest feeling I've ever had. It just, I don't know, something was tingling inside me. And the whole day felt like that. It was just such an incredible experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the Canadian press said they never reached out. I don't think they didn't reach out to us for commentary. So they wrote a little story about it and said that there was 800 people there. I think it was them.
Yeah. And then CBC said that they had reached out to us for comment and we refused to respond. However, people had caught with their cell phone me being interviewed by the CBC at the march. So, of course we called them out for that. But it was actually, there was a journalist whose office overlooks Parliament Hill. And you'll remember we started the march at Parliament Hill. We went all the way down through Spark Street and around, like it was a big circuit to get back up to the hill. And we were at the front. We had pipe and drum band and kind of leading this march. And you'll remember we were coming around the corner on Spark Street up onto Wellington and heading back up to go towards the hill. And the tail end of the march still hadn't even left yet. Yeah. There were so many people that it wrapped entirely around. And it was like the people who were just leaving to start walking and we were like coming up. They were like, it was massive. And this journalist admitted there was between 4,000 and 5,000 people there. So
it was somewhere around 5,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was so magical. And everyone that went there feels the same way.
Yes.
We ran into a couple of brothers from Vancouver.
Yeah.
And like, we didn't even know that anybody was even going to show up.
That's right.
Because you have no indications, because you're not RSVPing anything. Like, it's just like,
there's no tickets. Yeah.
No, right. And so these pair of brothers had showed up and started talking to me, and they're like, "Oh, we're from Vancouver." I'm like, "What?" Whatever. And I ended up running into them at a restaurant like a couple of years ago in Vancouver. Of all, there's millions of people here, right? But we had a great time with them, and lots of people, telling us the stories of guys, trucks breaking down, and then somehow they get a ride with somebody else. And
oh yeah,
planes, trains, and automobiles. It was really wild.
It was wild. And then just to come together, we did the march, we did some speeches, and then we actually wanted people to leave the hill. Like we didn't want to stay there. And we sort of went down onto Spark Street, and there's, a couple of restaurants and pubs along there who had been starving for business because the government was shut down for who knows how long, and businesses were really struggling. And we just filled the city with like kind of peace and love and happiness. Mm-hmm. And it was just, I don't know, maybe we should think about doing that again sometime.
That's got to be for the right reasons.
It does.
And there was another guy that had traveled by himself.
Yeah, I saw him the day before the march. I had actually gone up to the hill with Kelly Lynn and a bunch of other the CCFR volunteers. And I said, let's go we're going to go walk the route slowly to see how much time it's going to take. We're trying to do the logistics for this thing. And I noticed this guy was just kind of looking over, a little bit shy, maybe a little sheepish. And I was like, hey, are you okay? Because I could tell he was obviously staring at us and trying to interact a little bit. And he actually flew there, I think from northern Manitoba. He had flown there on his own, taken his vacation, spent everything in his bank account to be there. And he was just on his own. And I was like, well, you're not on your own anymore. You're coming with us. We took him back to the hotel. We had a sign building party and, all the things that needed to happen.
He became a volunteer. Yeah.
We just incorporated him right in. We adopted him. He became a volunteer and he stuck with us ever since. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's just a crazy, wonderful time.
It was a magical day. We did end up getting on CBC.
Yeah.
Not an interview, of course. But we did end up, because that was some good footage that, showed that we did assemble on the hill.
Yes.
And to raise awareness of, the stupidity of the government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which has continued since, unfortunately.
Yeah, that has gone on unabated.
Yeah. And then that was followed up by the 2021 election. That was that useless pandemic election that Trudeau had called, with the idea that he thought maybe he could increase his minority to majority. Spent $600 million taxpayer dollars doing this election to end up with the exact same result he had. But of course, this was a hard time at the CCFR because, once again, you found yourself sick with cancer and you were in the middle of treatment.
Yeah. Throat cancer this time.
Yes.
Yeah. I had no idea why this kept happening to me. But we had an election and we had been working, I guess, at that time for like 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 6 years.
Yeah.
Working 6 years. So, there really isn't a lot of time to waste.
Right.
So we did the brochure campaign. And that was a really, really great campaign. That's never been done before.
No.
So we had the little brochure book, said meet your liberal
meet your liberal team.
Meet your liberal team.
Yeah.
And it had all of the terrible things that the Liberals had done in their reign of power up to that point. And we ended up delivering them. But like that kind of literature it takes a lot of skill and effort to write. And it's not easy, and it's very time consuming. And I was in cancer treatment at the time when I had to do that brochure with our graphic artist. And it was one of the most difficult things I ever had to do, because I was just like, man, I don't want to do this right now.
Yeah, you were not well. Yeah.
And I'm like, no, we got to keep on going. But I got that done. And then I handed that project over to you.
Well, and I ran with it because I was like, okay, I'll pick up your torch and go. And it was the craziest thing. We sent it off to the printers. And I remember going and renting a U-Haul van and loading it up with these brochures. And of course, like I said before, the GTA, unfortunately, is sort of ground zero for elections. They're won or lost in the Toronto area, whether you like it or not. That's just how it works. So I spent 16 days living out of this U-Haul van and delivering these pamphlets in a variety of ways. We would drop some off at gun shops so people could go and pick them up. But we were also sort of doing these little publicity stunts to encourage people to get involved, to show them what they had to do, and to sort of unite gun owners. So I would make these kind of meet and greets, and I do 3, 4, 5 of them a day. And we would meet in a particular neighborhood in a riding that was vulnerable in the GTA. And I would gather people together, and they sort of grew. You know, some of them might have 3 or 4 people show up, and other ones that have 20 or 25 people show up. And we'd go out as a group, you know, not necessarily wearing gun shirts or CCFR gear, just wearing our normal civvies, as they would call them, and head out into these communities and hand deliver these to the mailboxes of Liberal voters. And I know this got under the skin of Liberals. We were mentioned by Justin Trudeau. He did some kind of campaign rally, and he brought it up.
Right now, the gun lobby is campaigning against Liberals. In fact, they were here in Oakville today telling people to vote for Mr. O'Toole.
Bill Blair did a angry, red-faced video outside his campaign office because I had personally stuck one in the handle of his campaign office.
Shaking it.
Today, the gun lobby has been distributing their lies and propaganda in ridings right across Ontario, including right here in Scarborough Southwest. And they have been distributing a pamphlet which frankly contains far more lies than even Mr. O'Toole has told about his plans to tear up our gun laws.
Disinformation.
Full of lies,
Yeah. Mark Garrettson stood up in the House of Commons. You tell the story better than I do.
Well, years later.
Yeah.
Years later, he's in the House of Commons. He's like, the gun lobby in Canada, you know, and put this pamphlet together. It looks very similar, the same liberal red. Like, he's all outraged. And this was like years later.
Yeah.
And the website is still up. You can go to it right now. It's like, man, that really got under their skin, which is really great.
But nonetheless, the Firearms Association of Canada showed up in my riding, as they did many other ridings in the 21 election, started dropping off these pamphlets at doors that looked an awful lot like the pamphlets that we were already delivering, literally copying the Prime Minister's stock photo, putting the Liberal red on it, writing on it, meet your Liberal team, with a QR code to get right to the website. And by the way, that website is still up right now. I just went to it. No, this was a flyer that was printed, manufactured, links to a website, all under the control of the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights.
Thanks, Captain Obvious. Yeah, leave it to Mark Garrettson. But anyways.
We lost again.
We lost the election again. And at the same time, we still have to create ways to normalize gun ownership, right? The show would...
We still have a job to do.
Yeah. Canada downrange, unfortunately, due to the gun bans, sort of, went by the wayside. But we still needed some sort of national project, national campaign to normalize gun ownership. for everyday voting Canadians. So we developed National Range Day. And of course, we did this. There's no CCFR branding on it. It's got its own branding. It's got a beautiful website. It's taken a few years, but we're starting to get some of the other groups to help promote it just a little bit, which is great. But this is the first Saturday in June every year, and ranges and clubs across the country open their doors to the public. And I know my club in Ottawa, we kind of go all out. It's sort of the flagship event. I turn it into an actual circus, basically. But the idea is that clubs will open their doors. People can go in and see what it's really about. And I think it's been very effective. It's going to take time, of course, to make that national impact. But every year it gets bigger and bigger, and more clubs are doing it. So
well, and we designed that specifically to have all the logos and the website and everything, but all the trademarks, they are all trademarked, and anyone that wants to make their own shirts and their own merch and keep the money from it.
Yeah.
We issue licenses.
Yeah.
Free licenses. So if other gun groups or other groups of any kind want to use that trademark and participate and help grow National Range Day, we did that for a reason, which is it's not a CCFR thing.
No.
It's a Canada thing. It's a community thing. And so we did we designed all that stuff and went through all the expense in order to give it away for free to anyone who wants it, even if they're raising money for their own organization, because there's no limit to what can be accomplished, what can be achieved if you don't care who takes the credit. So
that's exactly
it was an important thing, right? And again, just going back to what we talked about before, the idea behind every single one of these projects is the idea of a whole community of gun owners going like, what we need to do? And, this is what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And every time I hear or we hear a good idea, I go back and like, how much would that cost? Why would we do it? How would we measure the results? All the rest of that stuff. Yeah, that makes sense. We'll do it. And that way we keep knocking things off the list,
Yeah.
Really important.
And that was a tough time because not only had the Liberals dropped an OIC banning, with the first ban for sporting rifles on our heads, but then they also decided to go after handguns. So they did the handgun freeze, which of course sort of snowballed into the run on guns. We had the infamous run on guns, and eventually they shut that down by putting a ban on imports as well. But then they rolled that freeze into C21. So it was just this all out assault on gun owners. You've got the long gun ban, you've got the handgun freeze, you've got C21. And it was sort of like, what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about this? Again, mostly using OICs other than the legislation, obviously. But it was a tough time for all gun owners, but that was our question. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah. Well, now I think some of these things might be out of order chronologically, but we had gotten some experience doing television.
Yeah.
And the firearms community, like just the regular firearms community, especially sports shooting or tactical shooting or whatever, never had any access to national television ever.
No.
So we ended up with Canada Downrange, as we talked about. We did a couple of different documentaries when the gun ban happened. Mm-hmm. We did Broken Trust on the Sportsman Channel. We did Gun Ban Canada on Wild TV. And then one of the projects, and I think this was before I got throat cancer, if I remember correctly, one of the projects that I'm most proud of that I've ever done. And I mean, it's not perfect, that's for sure. Because I mean, we're still a small group of people, at the time, probably 6 people doing everything that we talked about, even so far. Right. But was Gun Ban Canada Exposed. So it was a 7-part limited series on Wild TV, produced with Wild TV. They did the animations and the, formatting for television, whatever. And
yeah.
I did the research and the scripting and the hosting. But if you go to the YouTube channel, look for a playlist called Gun Ban Canada Exposed, 7 parts. I'm really, really proud of that series because every episode we went through like basically fantasy in the gun debate in Canada versus reality.
Yeah.
So that was really great. We brought that to TV. And then, of course, we launched, and this was before Bill C-21. So that's why I'm saying chronologically, I think we might have bumped it too far down.
They might not be in order.
But we ended up launching CCFR Radio on the Air, a nationally broadcast television show produced by the gun lobby every second week, year round. We are now in our 5th season. So the gun lobby has a series, a television series in our 5th year to keep gun owners informed, to bring the community together, to let people know what's going on, what they can do about it, stuff like that. Not preaching to the converted. We're keeping people informed and getting their participation because we need it.
Yeah.
And that was never even conceived of before. And it's been really popular.
It's such a far more effective and modern way to communicate with people too. You know, I mean, newsletters are great and we also send those out to you, but it's almost archaic at this point. People are busy, you know, they want to watch a show. They want to listen to a podcast. It's just a different time. Now, we also supported and participated in True North documentary by Andrew Lawton, Assaulted, and as well as Aaron Gunn did one on Politics Explained. He did a documentary as well.
Yeah. On the gun debate, basically.
Yeah.
And of course, we did those others. And, you know, one of the other things I want to mention is for the podcast and the TV show really changed things for us.
I think so.
Like it really did, right? It gave us an opportunity to reach out every 2 weeks all year long and let people know what's going on and have them hear it directly from us, right? Because we are on the front lines.
Yeah.
And when I had gotten throat cancer, I did I think I only missed one podcast, which you hosted by yourself.
Yeah.
I found that podcast.
It's probably terrible.
It wasn't great.
Okay.
I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. But it was kind of thrown on you, but I only missed one podcast during that whole time. And of course my beard fell out. And so, I mean, that was probably not great to watch, but, or to look at, because I really need this to hide behind. And it's funny because as I was looking at all those old podcasts, I always looked sort of the same, right? And I always weighed, I don't know, between 200 and 210 pounds. And then I changed my diet and I lost 35 pounds actually immediately.
Yeah.
And then people were asking you, oh my God.
People ask me that still.
Is Rod sick again?
How's Rod doing? He looks so skinny. Is he okay? And I'm like, he's on the carnivore diet.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
He stopped eating carbohydrates.
He's fine. He's on a
and
diet.
His cancer went away, oddly enough, and a bunch of my other problems. So it's funny, the podcast is almost a chronicle of everything we've been through.
Oh, yeah.
And the TV. Well,
it really is.
And the TV show as well, but the podcast has been video for longer, right? It was really interesting to watch.
We also did a project with Jim Shockey, Canada's most famous, iconic, legendary hunter, where we did some videos with him when the gun ban happened, because of course they like to say, oh, it doesn't affect hunting. You know, it's got nothing to do with hunting. Literally Canada's biggest hunter had his guns banned. So that was important.
Yeah, $100,000 gun of his.
Yeah.
His English double.
Yeah, I wonder.
A break action double barrel rifle.
Yeah, he's not going to get anything for that.
And I just, sorry to interrupt you, but Jim Shockey has always been there for us.
Always.
Whenever we've asked for anything, he's right there.
He's a good friend to the CCFR for a long time now.
Good friend to gun owners. Yeah.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that we recognize that.
We also did a series of radio ads, and that was fun. That played on, I think it was TSN on the sport networks, and also on CFRA, kind of Ottawa's biggest talk radio politics show. You know, Vashi Kapelas hosts a show on there, all kinds of people. And we spent like $150,000 on those radio ads, which was a lot of money at the time. We also redeveloped gun debate multiple times, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
We created those positive gun owner videos, if you remember those, where it was sort of, you know, I'm a gun owner, and it was supposed to try and make gun owners more relatable to normies, which we are. We're also normies.
Yeah, because we're regular people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We did a billboard campaign. That was huge. I think it was 66 or 68 billboards.
66 billboards in different markets across the country.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that was an interesting experience because we had somebody in the firearms community criticize us.
Yeah.
You know, oh, well, I looked at every single place where these billboards were, because we share all the data, right? Like nobody's ever been as transparent as we have been, right? Like we're like, okay, here's everywhere we posted them. Here's what it cost. Here's what's on it.
Coordinates, like literally the GPS coordinates of where you could go and see them.
And then, you know, so it's funny because our I guess our community can be not unlike any other community. We can eat our own kind of thing, right?
Yes.
this ridiculous, pointless infighting. But, you know, I had to actually go and say, well, because we were accused of it being too many of them were in conservative ridings. So like, oh, this is a fundraiser. It's like, well, no, I'll tell you what the truth is. The truth is, even billboard companies, only some of them would work for us. The majority wouldn't work with us. They were just like, no, we're not allowing you to
they just said
advertise gundebate.ca. Can you handle the truth? Gundebate.ca. Basically, that was it. There was no guns on it. There's no nothing, no, you know, crime scene. It was just like, go find out what the truth is. And they're like, no, that's too, we're going to let you do that. Yeah, we don't want your money. It was very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it was tough. Some other big stuff. We did parliamentary press conferences, which were a big deal. And we still do those. And that's a really important way because, number one, it gets your press conference on CPAC. I don't know why gun groups have never done those, but I think that's important. So usually we kind of top off a lobby week in Ottawa with press conferences. You also held standing at the Mass Casualty Commission, which was a really important thing. They had contacted us actually, inviting us to go and be there. And I think it was important because that tragedy, of course, was used as evidence to support gun owners further. So it was important to have your voice there. We've testified multiple times at both House of Commons and Senate
committees. Did you say support gun owners further? I think you said support gun owners.
I mean attack.
Attack.
Yeah.
Attack and support.
Us.
Yeah.
You and I have both been expert witnesses at committees in both the House of Commons and Senate. So that's really important.
For every bill that ever came.
And we've always done that. Yeah. Then during C21, we did the Scrap C21 project. And of course, that had a whole bunch of variables to it. There was a letter writing campaign, online tools for gun owners. There was a poster project that was sent out to clubs and stores across the country. There was a website where people could download content and use it for social media battles. And
so they could upload those as original posts.
Yes.
Again, that
instead of just sharing from us.
Helps the algorithm,
And there was a mainstream media outreach. And that was a big project. It was a lot of work. There was so many different moving parts to it. But I think it was 6 or 8 days later after we launched it, the amendments to C21, the infamous G4 and G46, which would have basically been a full-on semi-auto ban, were withdrawn. The Liberals walked those back. So, well, you know, small wins when you can get them, we'll take it.
And you know what? There was another. So that one was during the House committee hearings for Bill C21. When Bill C21 went to the Senate, we had a little kind of a mini project. So it was we repurposed the website for the Senate. And we didn't talk about this, but I just want to mention this.
Yeah, no, this was good.
Because this was really cool. Like every once in a while, like we do a lot of projects. Obviously, we've been at it. I don't talk for an hour or whatever.
Yeah.
But, you know, I always want them to work better. And we always put more effort into the next one and keep trying, right? But for when Bill C21 went to the Senate, we did a letter writing campaign. We updated scrapc21.ca and made it a Senate thing, right? And changed all the addresses. So if you want to write letters, here's all the senators and what have you. But one thing that we did, we were going to go testify. I was going to testify at the Senate. And for everything that we need to talk about, there's no way anyone that's testified to the Senate understands the format. You really can't get a lot accomplished.
No, you get 5 minutes.
Yeah. And then you may get some questions because you don't know who the senators are going to call on. And then, of course, you have bad senators who are there like, do you have any connection to the National Rifle Association in the United States? Like stupid questions like that where they just waste time. And if you're there to actually do something, you have to get the information to the senators because you never know. You might actually have some of them that are like, you know what, I didn't know that. And now I look at this whole thing a little bit different, which actually sort of happened. So the idea that I had was to produce a video with all the salient points, data, graphs, whatever. And I called it Bill C21 for Senators, if you remember.
Yeah, it was like a Dear Senators video.
I think it was like 18 minutes or something like that. But it was like a little mini documentary of doing the fireside chat with the data. And I sent it to all the senators myself.
Yeah.
You know, I will be appearing. All I ask is that you watch this video. And if you have questions for me, I will be there. Yeah. And then we had all of our audience, all the members and everybody who follows us, please send this to all the senators and implore them to watch it. And you know what? They all did.
They all did. Every single one of them were like, I watched your video.
Yeah.
I have some questions for you.
That's
and
right.
it gave you that advantage because you had that 5 minutes to testify, which you can basically give a very brief overview. But you had already had 18 minutes of their
And
time.
I've already established a relationship with
Yes.
them. And I think I got the vast majority of the questions.
Oh, you absolutely did.
And it was just, I was very proud of that idea. And it's one of the moments where you're like, I had the idea, I did the work, and it actually worked.
Yeah, and it worked.
Rather than I had the idea and I did the work and nothing happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We got to take those where we can get them, right?
Well, there's been lots of losses and lots of weird things that happened. One of the weirdest things that's kind of happened, I think, for me anyways, was the absolute proof that there is this weird triangle of doom between the Liberal government, the anti-gun groups, and the media. They're all in it together.
Yeah,
and this was proven during the Poly promo code
Poly debacle.
The debacle. And it was probably the closest thing, I guess, to like a
scandal.
A scandal.
That we've ever
that
had.
we faced.
We've never really ever had them.
Right. And it was based on a lie. I mean, we don't have to go into it today. Everybody who's been around already knows all about it. But they fabricated this thing, made up a lie. And it's interesting because I'll never forget turning on the TV in the morning with my coffee to watch the news, and every single channel they were talking about it. And the interviewer, like the reporter, would have her little cheat notes or his cheat notes, and they'd be talking about the same thing. And it was this coordinated, very planned, very well orchestrated effort, to demonize us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And fairly effective. It was a pretty rough few days around here.
It was really uncomfortable, but it was a demonstration. It's like, if you truly do become a problem for the federal government, there are things they will do to you.
It was a show of force.
That's right. Like I was in a similar position where I made that video when the doctors group, when the spin docs first came out. And I'm like, hey, listen, you may be in this fantasy world where you can just run around and be like, we want to ban guns. Civilians don't need any access to guns. And that might be what you think. But until you actually know anything about this topic, you don't know what you're asking for.
Right.
How are you going to get those guns out of people's homes? How are you going to convince people that they should have their property taken when actually you don't have any facts? You have to, when you're spouting lies in the place of studies, right?
Right.
And, I made a video, and then what they did was they took what I did, they twisted it into something else, and something I never said at all. And then they plastered it through newspapers across the country.
Oh, yeah.
I even had to answer for that on the agenda.
Yes.
Steve Paikin in the day, right? And
where they had like multiple people ganging up on you.
Yeah, they had a whole panel. They had Najma Ahmed by herself in the studio.
Yes. Protected.
And then they put me in there. I was the focal point of all that, and 4 other people.
Yeah.
All pointing at me.
Yes.
Right? So it was,
that's fair.
Yeah. Right. But same sort of thing happened there where, we're having a spat back and forth with Polly. And then they're like, made this story about how this was on the eve of the anniversary. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It was in the middle of November. It was referring to this. It wasn't. It was referring to their Twitter account.
Yeah.
It was like, we demand they take it down. I was like, it was taken down actually when the whole thing started. Like just a series of lies, and then all of them singing off the same sheet.
Yes.
It was really something to see, actually.
It was. And it sort of taught me, the power of, well, first of all, the power and influence of the anti-gun lobbies with this Liberal government in particular, but then the power of the Liberal government. And I guess it makes sense when they're paying them. It's not a conspiracy theory, but when they're paying the media, that they answer to them. And through that whole thing, like it was just an absolute show of power on their behalf.
Yeah.
And really an awkward time.
Well, it showed us that they're awake to us, that we are a problem for them.
Yeah.
And they're like, let's crush them once and for all.
Yeah.
And it was wild. They were all in it together.
Yeah.
And it was it was a fabricated outrage. It was very interesting.
It was. I mean, we've had some crazy times. And then we started working on this other project after that called Operation Pitchfork. And this was going to be, this was going to be a project that would sort of lead into whatever was going to happen next. And what happened next was the government prorogued. So there was a poster project that we did just pre-writ, which was perfect because we got that in under the line before the writ dropped. And then basically we had to take Operation Pitchfork and at the last minute sort of pivot and turn it into an election project. So that's exactly what we did.
Yeah, well, so Operation Pitchfork is interesting because one component of it was the poster project. So this was an idea that that we came up with before, which was mainstream media there's gatekeepers there.
Yes.
Right. Social media, there's gatekeepers there.
Yeah.
You always have one hand tied behind your back and one leg tied behind your back, and you're trying to fight these people and they've got everything, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the ideas was, and this was in Scrap C21, that we would create these full color posters and send 4 to every range that wanted it for Scrap C21 and 2 to every gun store that wanted it. We were going to send out 50, and this is free to them. All they need to do is email us where they want us to mail them the posters, and we would do it at our cost. And I said, we'll do 50. And then we got requests for over 300. So we did all of them anyway.
Yeah, we did all of them at our own cost.
So then I was like, okay, well, let's do this again as one component of Pitchfork, Operation Pitchfork. There was a whole bunch of things. So we ended up, rather than to have people request it, we just sent them to 1,300 addresses.
Yes.
Every range and every gun store.
Yeah.
And yeah,
we put those out, and that it was a ton of work. I mean, we had volunteers down at the warehouse,
stuffing tubes, 1,300 of them.
Yeah, it was a wild operation, but we just sort of, instead of waiting for permission to send it to you or waiting for you to ask, we just preemptively did it. And we got all that work in under the wire before the writ dropped, which is great because it didn't count towards your spending limits as a third-party political advertiser. And of course, then we went full swing into the election project, which was sort of it had 4 different prongs. We had a get out the vote effort that we had put on Wild TV and Sportsman Channel. And this was speaking directly to our community, like, hey, gun owners, here's a job for you. And it was aimed at, getting out gun owners, their friends, their family, bring 4 people, bring 6 people, whatever you can do, get people out to vote. So that was really important.
Mm-hmm.
There was also some political ads that we put on social media, on LinkedIn and Twitter. Spent quite a bit of money doing that.
And the rest of the social media platforms actually blocked us.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
They made it so that we couldn't get on.
Yeah.
So which is interesting. Now it's funny because people talk about election interference, and there is so much election interference.
Oh yeah.
And it's not from us.
No.
It's actually on behalf of the government. But we also did a huge national network television ad campaign. We had 12 different ads. People might remember them, but we had them primarily around news.
Yes.
Because we actually were going after the elbows up voters, which is nightly news. So it was on every television network in Canada, as well as another completely unprecedented thing that we did.
You say that word all the time when talking about the CCFR.
But they were unprecedented.
Yes, they were.
And I know that we missed something, so I'm going to have to try to fit it in because maybe it fell off our list. But anyway, we actually showed our ads during the Stanley Cup Playoffs, including in Montreal versus Toronto.
Yeah, the Leafs game. Yeah, which was absolutely massive. And like to even be able to pull that off, to have a commercial during the Stanley Cup Playoffs with 2 Canadian teams, like that was pretty wild.
Yeah. And of course we had the poster project. So the poster project itself, I think that was $56,000.
Yeah.
What we had to report to Elections Canada was about $365,000. So the total that we spent was $421,000 on the most recent election, the 2025 election, which put us in 7th place in the entire country, well above the overwhelming majority of public sector and private sector unions.
Yeah.
As far as an election advertiser.
And again, unprecedented.
It
the
was.
only gun group to show up for the election.
Well, that's true.
Yes.
But the gun lobby in Canada actually has that level of influence now. And that's, I'm pretty proud of where we come in 10 years. But one of the other things that we missed, I just realized.
Okay.
And you're going to go, oh, that's right. Remember I was searching around for something?
Yes.
One of the things that people had always said in online forums or whatever is like, we need full page ads in newspapers.
Right. Yeah.
And that was one of the biggest projects we ever did, which was the Post Media Project, where we did 68 full page ads.
Yeah.
Plus, so it was actually 2 full page ads. It was 1 full page ad, which was an open letter, and another page with a sponsored article and an infographic, like 2 full page. So 68.
It was really nice too. Like, it was really nice.
It was a serious campaign. Like, and we put, I don't know, $280,000 into it.
Yeah.
68 full page ads across 17 newspapers all over the country.
Yeah.
Including like the Montreal Gazette, the Toronto Sun, the Vancouver Province, like all the big newspapers.
We've done a lot of big things, and I would kind of put our record up against anybody else because, everybody's got to fundraise and everybody's got to do certain things, but we do those things so that we can afford to do these big things. I wish they were working better, but at the same time, like we have to do everything possible. And that's always been our philosophy. So yeah, I just wanted to say that I would proudly put that record up against anybody.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can't change the government, but we can do, we can participate in elections. We can get the vote out. We can try to change the way people vote. We can try to raise public awareness about the issue and let them know that the public doesn't understand this issue.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a poorly understood issue. That's something that we battled with. That's what we started trying to battle.
I think it's better understood now. And you see a definite shift in public perception.
Yeah.
You think about when we first started, and you would even mention that you owned a handgun or an AR-15, and, the fainting couches would be rolled out. And now you've got, all these normies across country are like, hey, this gun ban's stupid. I don't support it. We should scrap it and focus on crime. Like,
even the police are saying that.
The police are stacked up with the gun lobby.
They're begging the government to stop the buyback.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is not a current events episode.
I know. So, okay. So where are we now? Well, we've got the new same old Carney government, which is basically the Trudeau government recycled with a new leader. Now, I'll admit he's done a few things that sort of trying to get away from the divisive Trudeau era policies. And I wish he'd keep doing that more. So we'll see what happens. But in the last election, Natalie Provost, one of the spokespeople for the anti-gun lobby, she won a seat in the House of Commons and then was given the Secretary of State for Nature role. So she's raking in $300,000 a year under the guise of working on nature while doing all the press conferences for gun control.
Yeah.
We recently, I know, sorry.
Oh, these people, man.
Yeah. We also recently had the privilege of leaking that infamous Gary Anandasangari audio, thanks to my good friend Sean, who sent that over.
Very courageous CCFR member.
Very courageous CCFR supporter. Just a great guy. And of course, that caused weeks of trouble for the minister. He is still embattled. I actually smell a cabinet shuffle in the makings. We had the pilot project for the gun confiscation program in Cape Breton. And I jumped on a plane. I was joined by some conservative MPs, the group from Port Morion Wildlife Association, just amazing crew of people. We went out, we rallied against the police chief who was, taking a paycheck, taking a payoff to do this gun grab on behalf of, I guess, maybe his brother-in-law, the Liberal MP from the area. But anyways, we went out there and rallied against it. And it was, there was a couple of things that came out of that. There was a statement put out by the union that represented the officers saying that this was a unilateral decision by the chief. It was not supported or endorsed by the officers. And in fact, they were not consulted on it. And there was some talk of maybe calling for a non-confidence vote in the chief. But before that could happen, don't worry, he retired. Yeah. He resigned. So he's gone. We just recently had another rally in New Brunswick, in Boys Town, the geographical center of the province. And that went swimmingly, of course. And then PEI and Winnipeg are next on the hit list. So there'll be more of that to follow. And we've been working with the provinces. The provinces have been rolling out a number of roadblocks, I would say. Alberta, Saskatchewan, rolling out stuff that will protect gun owners. And I think Yukon's got some stuff in the works too. So
yeah, doing everything we can to help them along.
Yep.
And then what else? Like we're getting close.
Yeah,
close
getting
here.
to the end of the list. Well, we've got another national campaign coming up that we're going to be launching to embarrass the Liberals, prepare for the next election. It'll probably be yet another record breaker.
It will be a record breaker, and we talked about it earlier today.
Yeah,
I really want to get this done.
It's exciting
because it's a big deal. This could be a really big deal. It could make a real difference. So we'll see. We're going to talk more about that another time. But at the there's so many stories that we didn't tell because we can only make this so long.
Yeah, people aren't going to sit for about 46 hours and listen to it. So.
And so many things we just missed. But it has been an incredible adventure. And the only reason, like if you look at everything we said in its totality, we're a small team of people that made these things happen. But the people that really made it happen is the people that believed in the CCFR and believed in us as a team right from day one, believed enough for them to go to work, have the government steal 40% of their money, and out of whatever they have left to go, you know what? I'm gonna become a member of the CCFR, give them $40 a year. Or the people that are the insiders that are donating $20 a month or more recurring, or people that have made donations, or clubs that have made donations to us, or all the volunteers that are helping us and going to shows, like Jason Gallen and his wife and his little one that showed up at Boys Town.
Yeah.
And sold CCFR merch at the rally and CCFR
and froze doing it.
And froze their butts off doing it.
Yeah.
And like these are the people that really made all of this happen because I'm just some guy with a video camera.
Yeah.
And you're in Ottawa.
I'm just some scrappy girl in Ottawa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And without everybody else, that's all we are. And so congratulations, I think, to everybody who decided the CCFR was the group to support and have stuck with us through all of this, through all the adversity. And at the end of the day, we feel like we've been beat up. I think the analogy I was talking about earlier, where I said, I feel like, we got this high rise, we're trying to get to the top. We keep climbing up like 3 flights of stairs, and all of a sudden somebody comes and boots us. Boom, 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 down the stairs we go. And those are elections, basically.
Yeah. And we just keep getting back up.
And we're getting back up. And every time we lose an election or something doesn't go our way, or something we do doesn't have the desired effect, I just sit and I'm like, okay, what now? And usually I wash that off within a few hours. I'm like, okay, I'll tell you what now. And I get my pen out and I'm like, okay, this is what we're going to do, this, and this, and this.
Yeah.
What do you think of this? And we form a big plan and then we execute it. And it's usually within a couple of days.
Yeah.
We're already back up and we're hammering it again, because at the end of the day, what are we going to do? We're just like, yeah, we're done. And you know what? Let's just give it to them. Let's just you guys won, we lost. Here you go. We're going to go away.
No.